and gentlemen, this evening will go down in history as the citizens of Arkansas helping to revive a custom that's recognized that the human soul requires spiritual nourishment from holy scriptures, from music, and from elevated literature that we call poetry. We are blessed that two distinguished poets have traveled from the East and from the West to grace this event.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
I live just down the road. It always is so good to come home to Centerpoint. It's delightful. And tonight, it is an added layer of delight in that I have been invited to share what I do as a poet with people I know and don't know, and people who have come that I appreciate. And I just appreciate you all being here. I'm going to take you on an adventure with my poems and a sampling of what kind of writing I do. So I'm going to start with a Langston Hughes poem, and this is one of my favorite poems by Langston Hughes. It's called Theme for English B. The instructor said, "Go home and write a page tonight, and let that page come out of you. Then it will be true." I wonder if it's that simple. I'm 22, colored, born in Winston-Salem. I went to school there, then Durham, then here to this college on the hill above Harlem. I am the only colored student in my class. The steps from the hill lead down from Harlem, through a park, and then I cross St. Nicholas, 8th Avenue, 7th, and I come to the Y, the Harlem Branch Y, where I take the elevator up to my room, sit down, and write a page. It's not easy to know what is true for you or me at 22, my age, but I guess I'm what I feel and see and hear. Harlem, I hear you. Hear me, hear you. We too, you, me, talk on this page. I hear New York too. Me, who? Well, I like to eat, sleep, drink, and be in love. I like to work, to learn, read, and I want to learn how to understand life. I like a pipe for a Christmas present, or records by Bessie, or Bop, or Bach. I guess being colored doesn't make me not like the same thing other folks like who are not in other races. So will my page be colored that I write? Being me, it will not be white. Thank you. So I'm going down the road now to our house. And for a long time, for many years, the population count in Centerpoint was 136. And so I remember that vividly, and that's what I took away with me. And so my first poem is called 136. And so it also won first place in the Florida State Poets Association. Out of 87 entries, Mary's won number 1. So, and look, I said, and Centerpoint won number 1. Okay, 136. 36. I come from a place where time slowly simmered like a fresh cut of lean roast beef in an unforgiving oven. I come from a place where the audacity of weekday mornings strummed my nostrils awake with the arrogant aroma of roasted coffee searching for a hot country breakfast. Where Sunday morning sleep tasted like fluffy homemade biscuits smothered in foreign butter and wild berry jelly with a side of skillet fried red potatoes. Where Sunday morning sleep tasted like a pitcher of ice-cold sweet tea, a few freshly squeezed lemon slices floating like toy boats in a tub of water. Where poetry basked in dialect and culture emerged during family mealtime, showed up during prayer time, and grew wild in the fields along highways. I come from a place where I picked wild blackberries by the gallon, walked barefoot with scorpions, and scaled trees that dared me to fall. I come from a place where hours in the dog days of summer moved at the pace of a charming garden snail. No hurry, no appointments, just navigating its destination. I come from a place where the pride of 136 peace-abiding folks loved the smell of their Arkansas mountains. This next poem commemorates my sister, my second oldest sister who passed away in 2007. And so it's called Elegy for Pearl. For everything there is a season. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Her memorial service was over. We walked out of the church at 4 in the afternoon. A light mist, a brilliant sun, and mourners embraced us. Sobering reminders of our loved one whose voice would no longer kindle the hearth of our lives. Somber-faced chauffeurs stood by open doors, invited the family inside gleaming black limousines. We sat down, stared, and waited. The sleek black hearse ahead of us would lead the cavalcade of cars wearing beads of headlights. We passed the school grounds, the fairgrounds, and Yart Gary's car lot. We passed mom and pop stores, heaving the aroma of Southern Sunset coffee out their doors and through their windows. We passed Black Angus grazing in fields littered with loose saffron-colored grass in dense pasture lands. The only expression was the driver's eyes, darting about the rearview mirror from one family member to the other. Just beyond Cap Murray, Ben, the cemetery came into full view like a blueprint on a plot of earth. Grave markers and headstones in formation, a layout for loved ones. Now we'll go to a happy place, back to Centerpoint. Crowning Miss Willie from Centerpoint. Does anybody remember Miss Willie? Oh, okay. So I wrote this one. It's for my Sunday school teacher. When I remember you, I remember the anatomy of your Sunday crowns, the rhythm of their wide brims making classy debuts while accenting the symphony of your graceful stride, the mimicking sound of your Sunday best high heels, like cadence and repetition of a call and response spiritual. When I remember you, I remember my prissy Sunday school teacher, leading your growing littles through sobering lessons intended to floss our daily living. You lived on the edge of our lives in the pews as we tried to understand one preacher in 3 persons, baritone, tenor, and Louis Armstrong. You simplified our wonder. When I remember you, I remember one of your favorite rituals, afternoon outings on your front porch, swinging back and forth while fanning and dabbing stubborn sweat beads, taunting you and the art of your daybreak makeup perfection. Dainty handkerchiefs, Arkansas charisma, center point, that is. When I remember you, I remember a genial role model, devout disciple, a handsome lady who did all things well and settled for nothing less of your students, of your community, and even of your garden vegetables. Sunday crowns, Sunday school teacher, I never get dressed without you, without your inspiration. Miss Willie, Arkansas unique, center point, that is. Now I'm going to step into another part of our world. This poem is called Muted Treasure. The earth cradles another mother's child. Muted treasure, muted target, no smile. Bullets in the head, bullets in the back. Black bodies drop, then a siren attacks. Telling pastoral, surveying a recycled movement, landscape of blood and blockade, of tears and torment. Scent from the coffee shop just across the street, and a bold scent of fear, tunt a colony of defeat. Here is a mother's treasure for dirt to consume, for the agony of silent words, for grieving wombs, for earth to drown, for tears to repeat and rewind. Here is the muted treasure and cruelly penalized. Now we'll walk out into nature. I love nature. This poem is called For the Love of Mindfulness. I am in love with you, forest, inviting me to explore your resources and to love your wild. I am in love with you, flowers, blooming like stranded rapture, exhaling art into a path of grief. I am in love with you, sun, nature of all things, power of life, circle of energy, circle of survival. I am in love with you, breeze, floating gently like a feather, reaching for the next moment. I am in love with you, March, moving spent leaves that fall in the cough of your wind. I am in love with you, moon, sneaking quietly into night like the fright of past curfew. I am in love with you, day, poised like a vein in an atlas, like an unexplored metaphor. Thank you.
I look out upon the people before me tonight, and it excites me. I drove a very long ways to see who was going to show up to see me. And I'm happy to see each of you. It's a beautiful evening, you're a beautiful audience, and I really thank you for being here. When you look at me, then I want you to understand that if I can write poetry, you can write poetry. Let me say that again. If I can write poetry, you can write poetry. Why would I say that? I have a degree in chemistry education. I have a master's in environmental sciences, and I worked on a PhD in soil chemistry. There was no literature in there, very little English. And then along the way, somewhere or another, life happened, as it always does. And it showed up in the form of a young man about 18 years old who needed assistance but didn't know he needed assistance. One of the things my life has done for me is because I come out of the sticks of Georgia. And when I say sticks, I mean sticks. And I didn't know one thing from another, and I went off into the world and explored, did things, and things happened. And I remember James Brown's telling me, don't give me nothing. Just open up the door. I'll get it myself. And I thought that anybody crazy enough to open up a door of opportunity in front of me, I'm going to walk through it and I'll figure out what to do with it on the other side. So poetry happened. But before we go into that, we're going to talk a little bit about Langston Hughes. Today is the anniversary of his death, and he's written some incredible works. And I want to share this one with you. It's a short poem, and it's called I Look at the World. I look at the world from awakening eyes and a black face. And this is what I see. This fenced off narrow space, it's a sign to me. I look then at the silly walls through dark eyes and a dark face. And this is what I know. That all these walls, oppression builds, will have to go. I look at my own body with eyes no longer blind, and I see that my own hands can make the world that's in my mind. Then let us hurry, comrades, the road to find. And this is what Langston left to us as a signature to not stand still. This young 18-year-old that I'm talking about, I figured out that he was reaching out not so much just to someone to talk to, but he needed someone desperately to help him understand how to open the doors of life, how to open the doors to the next step. He was a young man who was born with a lot of difficult illnesses that he was struggling with. He had parents who didn't know how to deal with that or with him. And so as a result of that, he was caught in this maze of unknown confusion. He didn't know what to do with the doctors. They were always at him, trying to figure out how to help him get there. And so as a result of that, I was talking to him one day, and he had a fight with his mother, and I realized that he needed something to start with there. Now, I want to tell you something before this happened. I never wrote a full verse of poem in my life. Never. I was in my 40s when I wrote this. So that should tell you something. And this is the first one I wrote to him, and it was a guide to him. And I said, you now can take this, and every year you read it, it will have something new into you, because it will help you grow, and it will grow with you. And the poem is titled, I Am. Oh, how I love thee, me, some ways I know, at first open eyes of the morning. The hairs rustle and free, it's me. In the morning shower, water rushing to perfection, do believe it. At breakfast, satisfying the carnal begging of my flesh, ah, yes, I hunger. Rushing to and fro, I step outside to meet my day. We merge to one. During days, though each different, none are ever bad. I am present. Beneath the trees, birds listen to my thoughts. They sing me songs. Waffling about, the stores beckoning me, I find miles of smiles to me. With friends happy, my heart swells. Their happiness, my happiness. The crazy colors of love surround me. That's family. Love and loved. Okay? Standing still, standing silent, standing no less. Self-love, my anchor. Years a few, time spent, rough yet I am beautiful. Like pure love, compassion, knowing, feeling, seeing, doing, hold my hands. Sparkling eyes, a sunny smile, like a burning candle to a dark room. This is me. I think it so. Therefore, I am all of this, and more yet, and still, I am. I love. I am in love with me. Not perfect, but my capacity to love and to love. A perfect man am I. You see, I am. And that's me. That was the first poem I ever wrote on that. Most people write the verses of a poem and then title it. I'm one of these persons where the title of a poem follows me around and I have to figure out what's going to come after it. This poem, the title of this poem showed up 6 months before I ever wrote anything to go with it. And it fit perfectly into the place of helping this young man, because sometimes you need to have someone around you to kind of assure you that life is okay. And it's called Over Your Shoulder. Look back, bright eyes with a smile that brightens my world. Over your shoulder, you see, I am here. Look back, in the distance you may be, but I see you. You see me. Over your shoulder, still bright and smiling, yet concerns cast you in its shadows. Look back, your world is my world. So I'm still here for you. Again, you need to know, and he needed to know, somebody was there for him. This poem is titled, I Am Here. Clouds blanket the midday sky. I sense your fear. Timing off, you can't touch my hand. I sense your fear. Different confusing messages reach your ears. I sense your fear. Sprained pain, another lost opportunity. I sense your fear. Explanations rushed and muddled. I sense your fear. Confused, you reach into the midnight air. The warmth of my hand anchors your thoughts. Now calmed, my hand upon your heart. Feeling safe, you know I am here. And the last one from the book that I wrote that I'm going to read to you at this point is called An Angel, If But to One. And we've gone around sometimes and think, do I just have one person in my corner? So tonight, this one is written to that genre of people who have that thought that, yeah, there's somebody in your corner. You just got to find them. And this is called An Angel, If But to One. Distant and high above, I see you, walking amid the desert trees, blooming flowers smile in your passing, a trail followed step by step. Absent of myself, I hear your footsteps. Suddenly awake, our paths collide, the dust hides our crash. You startle me, dazed and wings disheveled, seeing me as I am. You dust me. You noticed my wings scarred. Notice taken to my fresh scars. Our other scars present present caught your eye, aged in time were their faces, driven to touch, to like it was likened to a feather that brushed their faces, my face. Compassion followed from your eyes, feeling awash like a summer's rain. Your heart became known to me. Days of yesteryears grafted in the faces of my scars opened themselves to you like a wave forced by the wind. You consumed each scar you met. Life's ugliness, intense and complex, warped my world. Family and friends with colors true to form seemed blinded to my heart. I grew bigger, but it was lost amid all of those colors. You saw me. You saw them. You saw the days of yesteryears. Compassion welled into a torrent. It filled the stream. It was your gift to me. You saw me just as I am. I now can see too. You are my angel, my weight over. Thank you.
Dear relatives and neighbors, I'm William Maxwell, extraordinarily honored to be born in Centerpoint. I'll tell you the story. Jesus gave the world the ultimate panacea, the 11th commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you, he said. I was born March 9, 1929, in Hickory Grove, Centerpoint, and I was fortunate to have at birth 9 mothers. My mother, Victoria Weston Maxwell, I'm her first son. I'm her mother's first grandson, Lula Weston Bowles. My mother had 5 sisters, none of whom had ever practiced being a mother with a grandchild or nephew before. Right there, I had 7 mothers off the bat. Next door was a spinster lady whose only job was to take care of her elderly father. So at 9 o'clock, she finished her chores and rushed the 12 feet from her house to our house to mother me. Down the street, I forgot the microphone. Sorry, you're supposed to let me know. I'm at down the street, 500 yards away, was a white girl, 8 years old. She had no siblings, no other neighbors. School let out in June. Guess what she did every morning from June to September? She ran 500 yards to the Maxwell house where she mothered me. I learned my lesson. Jesus, as usual, was right. The ultimate, thanks. The ultimate panacea is love. I go to Centerpoint High School, right down the street here. Mr. Ingram, the principal, gives me the name Professor. I'm 6. What the hell is a professor? Exactly 20 years later, I am a professor in Korea, at the National University of Korea. Love is prophetic. I was blessed by born in Centerpoint. So, I've written a bunch of books. Some of them are over here. This one, briefly, I lived in Africa 6.5 years. And Africa is the world's most misunderstood continent. But I studied Africa, living there, and I decided to capture the history of Africa in a book called The First Hero. And I'll read just one poem from this book. Every chapter ends with a poem. Now remember, I'm not a poet. These two guys are poets. I'm a professor. But guess what? I borrow tools from them. I use poetry to get across a pedagogical point. So here's just a sample. Here's a poem. By the way, of all the continents, there's 6, I guess. Guess which continent invented dance? Africa. But you won't find that in the history books. Let me read this little poem. The doctors can't fix it. It's a paralyzed vocal cord. So my parents claim I talk too much. Let's dance. Let's dance, said the orchestra man. The waltz, the foxtrot, the rumba, I know you can. You have reasons to dance. Come on. It's a jig. Try a jig. Remember those sweet yams you went to dig? Or those words of praise that came your way? Or that high honor you earned the other day? Come and dance your blues away. Let your muscles harmonize with the song. You know the joy that can't go wrong. Or let your muscles sing a note or two. They really want to dance with you. My most important book so far was Super Parenting. There's only one poem in that one, but I won't read it. We don't have time. But there's a rule in life. If you don't have an Asian friend, you are deprived. I lived in Asia 11 and a half years with my wife, an American. We learned so much from Asia. So, go out now, find an Asian friend, and become a friend of an Asian. And here's a book you can give those new parents. It's a translation of Super Parenting in Korean by Korea's #1 publishing house. It's called Kinya Kiroki, it's meaning super parenting. But my last book, just finished yesterday, is called, now this is shocking. It'll shock the burrs off your shins. It's called, how many minutes have I got, Chauncey? Huh? 2. Oh. No, we have to live by the rules. Every poem you've ever read, and this one I'm going to read, is an act of love. This book is an act of love with a message sent from high above. God's word, dear St. Mark, and a smith named Adam, followed by a louder voice echoing from the Nobel stage by an economist who was really a sage. Milton Friedman is his name, and his message was the same. Quote, let the poor of the world listen with every ear. The end of poverty is near. The path was made wide and clear by God and 1,000 teachers from east and west. Whatever your craft or work, if you do your best, humans and God will do the rest. Prepare for you a heavenly nest. Then my last one Now, this is grandmothers and mothers and dads reading to their baby from the moment they crawl out of the womb. Now, actually, babies take about 6 hours to recover. But on the second day, they're ready to listen to mama. Then, 42 days after birth, they're hungry to hear a father's voice. So mama reads for 42 days every day to the baby, and then dad takes over and reads 3 or 4 times a day, like Deuteronomy told him. Read to your baby. Tell stories to your baby. So here's a story. It's a poem that mom and dad and grandma and grandpa read to their baby. You are creative. Prove it. Dear sweet baby, human child, you're going to live a very long while. What's the first thing you will learn? Abundant love you deserve and will earn. Your mind is built in so clever a way as to learn 100 new things every day. You will learn to walk and talk and sing and dance and play games. All 100 relatives, you will learn their names and how to love and honor everyone. The last great lesson is that your work is never done. Finding your true calling is a great task. If you don't know yet, go to God and ask. In that career, you will find peace and abundant bliss and wealth enough to deserve from spouse and children a heavenly kiss.
Good evening. Good evening. Now, this is not any poetry that I wrote, but I can read pretty good. And I was raised in Center Point. So a lot of what they have told over this night, especially Mary, a lot of people that she talked about, I know them. I remember them. But now y'all remember me. Remember? That's the name of the poem by Langston Hughes. Remember the days of bondage, and remembering, do not stand still. Go to the highest hill and look down upon the town where you are yet a slave. Look down upon any town in Carolina or any town in Maine, for that matter, or Africa, your homeland. And you will see what I mean for you to see. The white hand, the thriving hand, the white face, the lion face, the white powder, the unscrupulous, y'all know I'm not a real good reader, power that makes you hungry, wretched thing you are today. The hungry, wretched. We're all looking for more. Okay, thank you all.
Hello. This is called A Visit from St. Nicholas 2020 Remix. The origins of this poem kind of had their roots, of course, in the COVID epidemic. My cousin, who lives over in Hope, and a group based around Hope, where we were working together to put on some theatrical productions during the height of COVID, to kind of give the community something to do over Christmas. And, things were different then, something like we've never seen before. And so I was thinking, about Christmas and about how, times had changed during the pandemic. And so with all that going on, and with apologies to Clement C. Moore, who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" or "A Visit from St. Nicholas." Here is the 2020 remix. 'Twas the night before the new year, when all through the house not a creature was stirring. Where would they go now? The stockings were still hung by the chimney with care, because who had the energy to undecorate this year? The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of Zoom school danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, both had our AirPods in, and were listening to WAP. And she had a wine glass, and I had a beer. Because let's be honest, y'all, 2020, it's been a year. When out on the lawn, there arose such a commotion. I thought Disney Plus must have released another Frozen. Away to the window, I flew like a flash, instinctively grabbing my bedside COVID mask. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow made like a spotlight on Hamilton in a Broadway show, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver, and I thought I remembered this shtick, so I Googled it, and sure enough, it was St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came. Coursers means horses, but these were deer with funny names. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. I know flying with masks on isn't the most efficient, but please, 6 feet apart, y'all, and stay socially distanced. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly are tired of meeting hurricanes because we've had 35, so barely over the ridgepoles they flew, because the reindeer are very tired of this too. And then after a moment, I heard a loud groan, and the sounds of a big man getting out of the sleigh atop my home. As I drew in my head and turned toward the fireplace, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a mask on his face. It was dressed all in red from his head to his waist. He also wore black shorts and shrugged as if to say, "That's all you can see on Zoom, okay?" He carried half-wrought boxes that said, "Please be kind. This year Santa's running a bit behind." His under-eye bags, how deep. His dimples, how hidden. Santa followed COVID restrictions as he was bidden. And his mask was bedazzled with sequins and glitter and read, #SantaSquad, an idea his wife got from Twitter. He had a broad face and carried hand sanitizer, and when I held out my hand to shake, he refused with a kind reminder. He was quick at his job, and as he worked, he explained, "Christmas this year has been a real pain. The elves were all prepping the Hollywood merch, but then the movies weren't coming, and I had to search for something new to fill boxes and stockings and such. And with these new restrictions, we couldn't very well rush. In fact, things have been in such a wreck, we canceled the second time through good list quality check. My new delivery target date became a week late, and I'm just squeezing it in on the last 2020 date." And checking his smartwatch to find out the hour, he rushed from the house, sweating, panting, in need of a shower. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team, gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove down the street, "Happy New Year to all. This one's nearly done. What a relief." Thank y'all.
My name is Barbara Washington. Good evening. This is a poem that I wrote, and it's entitled Tiffany and Chris. It's about 2 little children that were playing together. 2 little children playing together, a life of beauty and love. But wait, there's a sense of sadness. Oh, I'm so sorry you have no dad. But as the years pass and you two grow, you'll cherish the love made by you both. So watch over her, boy, for she's the most precious joy. And as the years pass and you two grow, you'll cherish the love made by you both. Thank you.
My name is Juanita Jackson, and I'm a native from Tollette, Arkansas. the big town of Tollette. When I was younger, I had to say this poem at a big convention, and I wasn't sure if I could find it. That's why I hadn't signed up. But I'm going to say it to you now. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. And it's by Will Allen Drumgoole. An old man going a long highway came to the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm, deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear of him, but he turned safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you are wasting your strength in building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You will never again pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build this bridge at eventide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said. There followed after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been not to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him.
Good evening. I'm Geneva Walton, and I'm going to do Mother to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor bare. But all the time, I've been a climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I'm still a climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
The greatest experiment in educational history was conducted by a man who became chair of psychology at Harvard. His name is Robert Rosenthal. He came all the way to Fiji twice to help me promulgate the idea that all children are potential geniuses. He even came to Atlanta and Phoenix to help me promulgate that idea. The idea simply is children who are told by the people they love, you are of God, you are talented, you have something to give the world. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I want to read a poem, my translation of the greatest experiment educationally in human history, the self-fulfilling prophecy by Robert Rosenthal. This is only about 1 minute. Becoming the best. Good morning, my sweet and adorable hair. I love your face, hands, feet, and even your hair. I love your body, your blessed spirit, your heavenly soul. Soon, I will love your lifetime goal. One day, you will awaken from a dream. You will be the best carpenter or bricklayer or jurist or perhaps a tuba player. Maybe the best pianist, or maybe the first to land on Mars. Whatever it is, my task is to help you soar among the stars.
This is a poem that's going to be in the next collection, but it addresses some of the questions that we have about why we write poetry. Why do you write poetry? Why do you write poetry? Why do you, Mary, write poetry? And I call this one Shapes of Knowing. I write poetry because a rainbow is born every time, because it shelters my imagination, because it allows me to arrest alarms, because it allows me to resolve conflicts. I write poetry because it allows me to release earthquakes, because it asks me to breathe in and to breathe out, because it reminds me to respond to mindfulness, because it insists on freedom of being and becoming. I write poetry because it allows me to imagine the shape of knowing, because it causes an undressing of a kind of resurrection light, because it reminds me that in spirit nothing is ever distant, because it allows me to layer my conscious and stack my ideas. I write poetry because it empties my blues and paints them as raw portraits, because it empties my recycles and restores them in language, because when I don't know what to say, it teaches me, because when I think I cannot sing, it gives me voice. I write poetry because it is the yoga that postures my mind for meditation, because it seasons my spirit like the first cup of coffee, because when I am lost, it finds me and then rejoices, because it replaces the hard drive of my soul. Thank you.
In my last effort here to close out the evening, I wrote about the reason why I'm actually here. And it's in the book. This is a self-published book, by the way. It didn't go through a publisher. I guess it was divinely inspired or whatever. But this poem got in there. And it speaks to the heart of who I am. And everyone knows that mamas are mamas are mamas, and they are important in our lives. So this poem is titled, and as I say, poems' titles show up for me before anything else. And it says, Love Me Some Mama. That's the title. Mama represented all the good of my youth. She, like hair, was everywhere for me. Her name, to hear it, was comfort when life challenged me. It did more often than I care to remember. It was my cloak of armor, me, invincible, when snugly in its wrap. The many mornings of life on the farm, invisible beyond our eyes, her signature always scripted our awakening. From her kitchen, I was called, and words were absent my awakening. Her calling, though unique, pierced each morning. It was always the same, mostly. The song of her percolator was soft and gentle, like a heart on adrenaline. It found a fever pitch. There followed, in close pursuit, were the pleasantries, aroma from her morning coffee, though it was not mine to have in early years. I bask in its generous sharing, the power of its hearty aroma. The smell of her coffee lingered like morning fog in deep valleys. It welcomes companion arrived shortly after. Mama was a great architect of ample biscuits, whose corners were sacred to me. Perfect crust doubled on those corner biscuits, a secret I'd never shared with my siblings, although, and perhaps they already knew. Competition, as it was too crafty and stiff. Yes, others mastered a kitchen's production. Mom's efficiency was undeniable. Food was prepared between stretches of her field work, our meals rarely late, and episodes of burned food all so rare. Mystery I never solved, but pondered was how she managed such tasks and raised 7 kids. Don't know how special, or if I was special. Mama, however, treated me as royalty. She tended my childhood wounds. She gave sermons to comfort when life was mean. She gave instructions like a captain on the bridge, but stood close by to catch me, being knocked about by life. Today, like yesterday, I stand in awe of Mama. Her deeds, her task, and her guidance wowed me. Though innocence was not always my standing, with 3 brothers also fingered me. When, but with a few years, she was my giant. Nothing was too big for her to solve. Like Solomon, her verdicts were swift but just. Her vision always saw through our cloudy explanations. The situations of our lives were met with sympathy and compassion. Our achievements found generous praise. Those times were fond remembrances, and I recall to Mama many gifts and sacrifices for me that today, every day, is my Mother's Day.